important thing by looking at the number of cases on hold and how to make sure the judiciary functions independently. That's the whole idea about judiciary. So we are just going to continue that topic today. And as is part two, everyone is encouraged to participate. Give your thoughts about this subject, any cases you have heard, any stories you know, so that will keep it interesting. Again, I'll request Aditya to start and then we'll take it forward.
Thank you, Vivekji, for arranging this second session. I wish there was this technical problem Bhishmji is facing was not there, so he was from the beginning. But just to connect it to the last talk, which was on January 30th, for whatever reason, it took me more time, so we did not have any discussion, major discussion. And it was decided that we will reconvene again so that people could give their comments and suggestions. So today I will not talk much. I will just moderate the discussion and invite observations from other people. The talk was actually recorded and Vivekji had circulated that video. So if people have not seen, they should go ahead and see that later on. Meanwhile, a lot of things have happened in the last 2 weeks. We have had initially Supreme Court making some observations, very stern observations, that if the government did not take up the recommendations for 5 Supreme Court justices in time, there'll be serious consequences. With those 5 justices being chosen, there was still vacancy for 2 justices on Supreme Court, and they made recommendations about that also. And then they gave instructions to the government of India that, the 5 that were initially recommended in December have to be approved first so that the seniority is maintained. And only after they are approved entirely in a batch, then the 2 should be approved. This language was very threatening. There was no need to do that. Government has its own procedure. I think on February 2nd, the government of India accepted the recommendations and forwarded them to the president. And those 5 justices, they are basically chief justices of 5 high courts, were sworn in. So at this point in time, the Supreme Court strength lies at 32 out of a sanctioned strength of 34. 2 are in the pipeline and eventually they will be confirmed. The law minister had said that, we will take our time and we will honor the recommendations of the court. And again, he had made this observation that there was no need to make those kind of observations. So that is the story as far as, selection by the collegium and recommendation being sent to government and supposed to be sent to the president by the government without any alteration. So that is where we stand. A number of other things have happened. One justice of the Supreme Court retired in January, was appointed governor of Andhra Pradesh by the government of India. And there are aspersions being cast that there was some sort of quid pro quo. The particular justice gave a favorable verdict on Ram Janmabhoomi case, and that's why he's being appointed the governor of Andhra Pradesh within 1 month of it. Looks like Bhishmji has joined. So, welcome Bhishmji. We were just waiting for you. I think he is still on mute and the camera is not there.
Yes, the video is not on. Bhishmji, can you hear us?
Well, he is definitely there. Can you unmute him, Vivekji?
Mm,
You're the host, so you could actually unmute him.
You can only ask. I'm sure you can unmute. You can ask to unmute.
So anyhow, we will go through the discussion, and whenever Bhishmaji is able to start speaking and start addressing, we will yield the floor to him. So if people are following that, again, it's being stated at this point in time, not by the judiciary, but the opposition parties, that government is trying to control the judiciary, and independence of judiciary is in danger because of quote unquote this quid pro quo arrangement between the government and some of the justices of the Supreme Court. So that is where we are as of today. So the importance of overall judicial reforms is paramount, being reflected by these incidents. I guess last time we really did not have discussion, so I'm open to questions, comments, observations from all the members who are present at this point in time. And let's start with anyone wanting to take it. Oh, here is Bhishmaji. Kindly unmute yourself, Bhishmaji.
It's done now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I had a problem. Now I'm okay. I see you fully.
Okay.
God, I got messed up.
Bhishmaji proved that any judiciary or judge, they have problem.
They had a problem, especially judges who are no longer judges, because we don't have too much assistance around. Okay, I'm sorry for the delay, but go ahead, please.
So I was just relating it to the last session and what transpired in between, and especially the controversy about appointing a retired Supreme Court justice as the governor of Andhra Pradesh. This is more of a political controversy by the opposition rather than confrontation between judiciary and the government. So here we are, and now we can continue with the discussion, which could not be held because of paucity of time last time. So I would invite comments, observations. I see Damleji raising his hand. So Damleji, please take the floor.
The number one, since the Bhishmaji is very authority person and work as a judge and judicial system, if he present his comment first, that will a guideline to us how to talk about this controversial issue, because this is very sensitive issue. Even I would like to know, if we pass any comment, will it be considered as a contempt of the court?
Let me first say this. Thank you very much for saying that, but I think Adityanji is the right person to start the process. He has read the materials. I have not. I have read materials here and there. I know I know what happens or what happened in the judiciary. I think his statement last time was well balanced, and I think he can lead the discussion, and then I will join. That's the way I would put it. The reason is obvious what you're talking about, that I don't want to take a stand at this time for obvious reasons, because I'm not afraid of anybody, but at the same time, I think it may not be appropriate. I can talk about the various situations I was in. I can talk about my experiences, but I think I'll come with them as the discussion continues. Okay. So uh, uh, I was asked, by the way, to be the main man in speaking today. I said no. It would be Adityanji. Adityanji was lead us because his statement made earlier was very well considered, and I think it was politically correct too, because we have to be careful that we don't go beyond our discussion in the real sense. Okay, thank you. Please, I will request Adityanji, you please start the process. Okay.
Okay. So Dhamleji, we are having an academic discussion. We are using parliamentary language. We are not targeting any particular, legal luminary or justice in particular. We are not scandalizing the judiciary. We are just having an academic discussion about judicial reform. And in my presentation, I did talk about, as part of judicial reforms, the police reform, the forensic, lab reforms, and government's contribution, etc. So it weighed all the parties in. So I think you can freely give your comments, but please unmute yourself because you are muted currently.
When I say my question was, I had no doubt about your presentation, very balanced and informative and educational, no problem of it. My concern is that most of us, we are not that kind of the knowledgeable about the judiciary system, or while talking sometime out of emotion, out of sincere emotional outbursts, some people may, this is fear, okay, may pass such a comment that may consider as, number one, out of like contempt of court, okay, number one. So we would like to know the guideline for that. And a second thing about these things, such an issue, in democracy, people elected a representative. There is a demand for transparency in the accounts also. Only system who are not check, any kind of check, is I'm talking Indian judiciary system. And the way it has been coming out, and you nicely described, it is like many times look like all in the family. Yeah. And on this background, look like if you say something, I think even the Kapil Sibal has to apologize to the Supreme Court. So person like Kapil Sibal has to do that. So we are small pawn in USA. So my question is that the way the judiciary talk about the government of India is kind of the judiciary dictatorship. I'm using the word. They don't want the judiciary dictatorship. You take it or face the consequences, like that. There is no check and balance in the democracy. The checks and balance, and there is no checks and balance for the judiciary. And the way the appointment going on, Bhishmaji correct me, I'm not that familiar with the Indian style appointment. The way the appointment on the district level court is done by the chief minister with the consultation of the high court judge and the political nexus about that. So when the person from the lawyer from the court appointed the district judge with some ideological leaning, that same person can be appointed and in the high court, and same person can be a candidate for the Supreme Court judge. And I don't want to name I know the 2-3 judges we can mention about that, but on this background, I'm a little bit chicken out, but what the look like the judiciary system do not want to be for the check or any kind of face the questions. They say this is our prerogative. Thank you.
Let me say something here. See, the judiciary at the lowest level, lower level, is not appointed by the Supreme Court or people attached to Supreme Court. In most of the states, to my best of my knowledge, because when I was selected, it is by competition, by some sort of. Thereafter, the people who are toppers, they are selected for judges. That's how the process starts. Thereafter, when it goes up and up, then of course somebody else gets involved. Supreme Court or lower courts next to Supreme Court, they get involved. Before that, most of the people who are going through the services, they are service people. Service means they have been selected based on merit. I remember when I was selected, when I was 24, 25 at that time, I had to appear in 7 exams. And after that, they selected out of 500 people, about 10 people. I'm just giving you to idea that it is not that from the beginning we had this problem. The problem comes when we go to some situation arises which has gone to that level when there is some sort of lack of understanding how to run the operation at the highest level. That's what the problem is. And I can talk about this. I know the people who were involved. I think I shouldn't be saying that, but I know the person who is the head of the judiciary at that time. I've seen him when he was growing up. So there are some issues involved, which issues have been raised by people in power and out of power, and people, the people not in the courts, but other than courts, they have raised issues, very, very nice issues, and you know the name of the people who have raised issues, and they have to be responded properly. And so I don't want to get into too much in this because go ahead and talk about it. But I mean, what I'm saying is that it is not that all the judiciary from the beginning is in a different mode. From the beginning, it is okay. When it goes to the highest level, then problem starts. Highest level. Problem start means that there is supposedly, apparently, some friendship or associational situations. That's all. Because as you will, I think you will talk about this, you must have read about it. Let's talk about this more. What are the problems? What are the issues raised at this time by the people who are non-judicial officers? So let's talk about this. I'm be very careful about what I'm talking about, but we can talk about this because the issues are in the open. Everybody has opened up. Even the Supreme Court has opened up. They have said what they have been required to do. So we can talk about this. It's a public information. We are not saying anything from us. So there won't be any kind of action against us for that. Okay. It's a public knowledge. Go ahead, please.
So there is a raised hand by Satyaji. Satyaji, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just following the discussion. I'm confused why there is a contempt of court on US citizen. We are US citizen exercising our First Amendment right. And this is not even a US matter, it's an India matter. So I'm not sure where the contempt of court is coming into picture. The number two, if the government, Aditya, you might have studied this more closely than I did. What prompted the government to give into the threat of the Supreme Court justices? If they already been they must be holding it up for a reason. They probably have some genuine concerns for why they're holding it up. These 5 High Court nominations, nominations. So, do you know anything about why they were holding up, and what could be the reason government felt threatened by this Supreme Court ultimatum, and is that why they have done it?
Okay, Satyaji, you have 2 questions, and I will answer the first question first. In my presentation, I did talk about blasphemy laws and less majestic laws internationally and contempt of court laws. And one may think that they are different issues, but they are kind of similar. You mentioned being US citizen, you may not be subject to contempt of court in India, but you do travel to India. And while you are India, you are under Indian jurisdiction. Your citizenship of US does not give you immunity from prosecution if you break the law in India. Okay. There are several cases of foreigners who have been prosecuted in Thailand for less majestic laws, sort of insulting the monarchy, saying, untruthful things about monarchy. Salman Rushdie, the famous author, wrote his book. He's not an Iranian citizen, but a fatwa was passed against him. So you need to understand that having US passport or US nationality does not give you immunity from prosecution if you're on Indian soil and you say something that is considered as contempt of court. So it's a question of jurisdiction. Nationality or citizenship does not give you guarantee. If you go away in India and steal something, whatever passport you have, you still be prosecuted by the law. So that answers your first question. Second question is, government has to do due deliberations, especially when government has no representation on the collegium. Government has to do background checks. And sometimes on those background checks, you have IB report, you have other intelligence agencies, you get reports from them. And sometimes the process is a little slow. We did discuss that, the Constitution mentioned that there should be consultation with the Chief Justice of India. That is what the Constitution says in the process of appointment of the judges. And the judges are not appointed by the government of India, but by the President of India. They hold office at the pleasure of the President. So government has to do due diligence in checking background, getting, seeking intelligence reports and other things. And that process is a slow process. And that's the reason what Supreme Court tends to want is that if they have recommended a panel of 5, the next day government should say, yes, sir, we are sending it to the president and president will approve. So that is where there is a problem. Even with the collegium system, which was, started in batches from 1991, finalized in 1998, with invalidation of the National Judicial Appointment Commission constitutional amendment in 2015, the Supreme Court asked the government to finalize memorandum of procedure for appointment of judges. And there are still differences between the government and the Supreme Court as to memorandum of procedure suggested by the government is okay or not. So there are continuous frictions on these issues. And It's a question of one branch of the state trying to browbeat another branch of the state. Whereas theoretically, by constitution, all three are independent branches: judiciary, executive, and legislature. In this case, the judiciary wants to have its own way, all the way up. That's what the problem is. Anything else, Satyaji?
Yes, we've been talking about this. I don't know if you want to open up the effort we are trying. We are trying to take an advertisement in the media in this US.
Satyaji, can you state that particular issue off record? That particular proposal off the record.
Okay, no problem.
This program is being recorded.
Okay, that's fine. No problem.
This will be available publicly. So
Okay.
Keep that off the record.
Okay, no problem. So the other thing I want to ask is, we know that there are only few families that is really occupying the judiciary, which is very, very unhealthy to the democracy of the country. And the Hindu Post and actually wrote an article. The senior Chandrachud recommended Sabariwal, the guy who's the person who was a gay, and the government is holding up his this thing. Now, and that the President Sabariwal's father was recommended by Chandrachud's father, and Sabariwal recommended Chandrachud, and Chandrachud recommended.
You're talking about an attorney by name of Saurabh Kirpal.
Kirpal, yeah.
Saurabh Kirpal, not Sabharwal.
Okay.
Saurabh Kirpal's father was Chief Justice of India, and so was the father of the current Chief Justice of India.
Right.
So current Justice, late Chief Justice Chandrachud had recommended the name of Chief Justice Kirpal for the Supreme Court. And in turn, Chief Justice Kirpal recommended the name of current Chief Justice to the Supreme Court. And now current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is spearheading the name of Saurabh Kirpal for the Supreme Court.
Right.
That is what the story is.
Yeah. So definitely this is a not healthy. Hello?
Hello?
Adityanji, I think he stepped away.
Okay, you can keep on continuing.
So my point is, this is a deep concern for the nation. This this is running into families. This is becoming an oligarchy and very, very unhealthy for the democracy. Now, snakes in the Ganga, the Anita, what's her name? The Vijaya Viswanathan, she has recorded some videos on YouTube. Whatever Harvard, the whole book is about Harvard and Wookism and intersectionality and anti-majoritarian, all kinds of things they are talking about. The Harvard is doing wokeism in this country, critical race theory, all these things are off-road Dalit movement. So the same people and the same names and the same language, it is on YouTube right now. She has written this, Vijaya Swanathan and Raju Malhotra wrote this book. So this she has talked about this. When you look at this whole picture, you wonder where this country, how this country can really democratic institutions will go if this is the kind of justice judiciary we are having. each person appoints his son, and that fellow appoints his another who appointed his son. And now she mentions about this. He talks about their attacking IITs and saying that equity versus equality. Apparently, there are backward communities are not enough to give them reservation. The government has to reallocate the resources to make sure that the people who are the outcome will also be the same. This is the same kind of stuff the wokeism in the United States is being spoke about, and they want to dismantle IITs. I mean, I come from IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. So this is
you are going off the point. Stay focused on judicial reform and don't go to wider issues, because then the emphasis gets diluted if we start bringing extraneous issues. So let's stay on judicial reform.
Okay.
I think in India as a system, if you see, son of the prime minister becomes the prime minister, the daughter of prime minister becomes a prime minister, the son of the chief minister becomes the chief minister, the son of a movie actor becomes the movie actor. Dynastic succession in various professions is the norm in India. Now, it may be socially and culturally acceptable, but is it acceptable in higher judiciary? That is the question. And for that, to avoid conflict of interest, nepotism in appointments, you need to have a transparent process. And unfortunately, the process that collegium system has is not transparent. And that has been the main critique of the collegium system, that A, it is controlled by the judiciary, it does not take any input from the other branches of the state, which is executive and the legislature. On the contrary, judiciary wants to have its say in everything about every branch of the government of the state of India, whether it is executive, whether it is legislature. They want to comment upon, who's to be appointed, or they want to have a say in who's to be appointed, chief election commissioner or chief vigilance officer. They want to have their say in that. And similarly, they want to tell the legislatures what laws the legislatures need to pass, or what kind of laws they are passing, or what are the deficiencies, or they need to take up this particular issue urgently. So it's just one-way kind of feedback with total domination rather than give or take kind of thing. So there is a problem with collegial system. Because of those problems, the NJAC constitutional amendment was enacted by the parliament, but Supreme Court did not allow it to be implemented for a single day. And we are continuing with the same problem. Unfortunately, at this point in time, the higher judiciary, instead of being open to suggestions, is taking a rather rigid, inflexible attitude that whatever we say is the correct thing, you have to follow that, nothing else matters. And in reasonable situations, that kind of attitude does not work. All of us have to be open to ideas. All of us have to continue to improve the process. There's a process of continuous quality improvement in businesses, in medicine, in other spheres of life. And I think it should be the same way in judiciary as well, that you need to be open to ideas.
Yeah. If nobody else, I want to make a comment on the comment you made. In India, a movie actor's son becomes movie actor, a chief minister's son becomes a chief minister. But at the same time, a movie actor has to prove himself by the people. They can bring him or up. A chief minister has to be voted by people whether he can stay or not. But in judiciary, we don't. That is one problem. Number two, not a single democratic country, whether it's the US, we have studied. I asked Deshji to write an article about it in the Dristikon.
Hello. Go ahead.
So not a single country, whether it is UK or US or Germany, we have checked in different countries. There is no democratic country in the world that is respectable democracy where judges appoint themselves. The power has to be derived from the people, whether it's a president, prime minister, or justices of the country, whether directly or indirectly. And this system is not sustainable. And I am concerned why the government, the parliament, like for example, they passed a law against the Maharashtra that they should follow this during the Uddhav Thackeray time. And the assembly, the state assembly simply voted saying that we are not going to follow that. So if this is, there is a real problem that there are very few families are holding it. They want to go outside their own sphere, want to elect election commissioner. And if this is the case, what I'm not following is why can't the government put their foot down? This is how you have to follow.
So some of these issues I discussed in my presentation last time when you were not there, Satyaji. We had discussed these things in detail. And that is why we are discussing that there's need for judicial reform because collegium system as it has evolved does not have constitutional backing. There's no mention of collegium system in the Constitution. In fact, some of the judges themselves have come on the record, and I mentioned Justice R.S. Sodhi had said that Supreme Court has hijacked, or the judiciary has hijacked the Constitution in, sort of making appointments for judges. And there were other judges I had cited that who said that there are problems with the collegium system. I think it's a touchy subject, and government of India, which is the executive, does not want to precipitate a constitutional crisis. So everybody wants to have a deliberative, consultative process by which there can be feedback. In last session, I had mentioned that the Minister of Law had written a letter to the Chief Justice or the Collegium giving government stand on the feedback and had suggested that there should be at least there should be a two-tier process. There should be one, evaluation cum assessment committee followed by collegium. So there's a two-memberedness, and the first committee should actually sort of do the vetting process so that, if collegium gets candidates, they have already been vetted. So there's some filtering process, and in that vetting process, government should have some role, and maybe collegium can have a government nominee to make it much more broad-based. And in my presentation, I had suggested that if at all you want to preserve the collegium system and you don't want any other thing to happen, then you need to take more feedback, not just from the executive, but also from the legislature, which means, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, Speaker, Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, or from general public, or recommendations for elevation to the high courts and Supreme Court from Bar Association, from the Law Commission. So from wider consultative process rather than a select group of people nominating their chosen people. So there are a number of proposals that can be considered. Problem is that the Supreme Court and the Collegium has to have an open mind to listen to those ideas. They know that the system as it is being practiced is not working. There are conflicts perpetually, but you have to be open-minded to consider alternatives. The other alternative is for the Parliament to bring another constitutional amendment and let it pass through and see what Supreme Court does.
So, this is where I'm wondering, there has to be a limit to the patience in this thing. If the system is working out well, maybe collegium system is working out well. That's not the case at all. Now, when you have autocratic complete power to one institution in the government, then you become a banana republic. So how long? I mean, they have. This is what I've heard. The Rajya Sabha chairman, the vice president, said when they passed NJAC, only one member of the Rajya Sabha did not vote, but 99% voted for that thing. And 30 states have voted, or I mean, not so most states have voted for it. So if they can dismiss it just like that, and this has been continuing on, and the Supreme Court judiciary threatening it, what is the next step? You're going to pass another NJAC bill, they will do the same thing. I mean, how long you're going to postpone that we will create a constitutional crisis and then continue this process? There has to be some time we have to say, put our foot down. It's not for the government or for the judiciary, it's for the country. Here is on what basis you are having a collegium system that's not in the constitution, and you are going to define what the constitution is. You are illegitimate to start with. You are selected through an illegitimate process, and you are going to tell what the constitution is. I mean, are we stupid or what? The population is stupid. I mean, this is a term that can be taken to the people and say that no, we are not going to put the foot down. This is not in the constitution, and we cannot agree to it. And I know that what will happen, they will starting giving all kinds of trouble to the governance, and they have to put their foot down too. How long we are going to stay away from the crisis, from the figuring for this thing?
May I make a small statement on this? Obviously, Satyaji, which is late, but process has started already. Process is in place. If you hear the statement made by the administrator with the government, he stated very clearly what they want, what should be done. It is not easy. It is not easy because there is some reasons for the government to go slow. But believe me, I believe, not because somebody has told me this, that the process has already started. If our government, our people take for example, all the constitutions of all the countries in the world regarding this issue, they'll be laughing at us.
Yes.
What is going on? There are many ways of moving things forward. The government doesn't want to do it. I know it, because it's very difficult for them to just say that this country does this, USA does this. I know what USA does. I know everything. We know everything. You know everything. But government doesn't want to start with that process. But ultimately it will come out that why we had a strange kind of situation where some people get together and make a decision. Almost that way. And sometimes it appears as if they've already predetermined the relationships of the people who are going to be in the position. I mean, I know I shouldn't be talking too much about myself, but I have seen people. I've seen the former Chief Justice of India. I've also seen the present Chief Justice of India when he was growing up, okay? And I know what they were talking about when they're meeting, okay? At that level. And what I'm trying to say is there is something built in the psyche that this thing is going to happen. Why? Because the arrangement is such that they can accomplish anything they want to accomplish. There have been good Supreme Court judges, I know that. One of them, for example, talked to me openly. Something has to be done. He is no longer alive, but he told me. And there was one Supreme Court judge, he was so afraid of talking about issues, even during emergency, that he asked me to just close the doors and even go from the back door with a document which he gave it to me to share with people, because he was a good Supreme Court judge. What I'm trying to say, there have been movements. But now I think for the first time, if you hear the person who has talked on behalf of the government, he has talked very sincerely, very clearly, and you can see in him that it's going to happen. It's not going to happen right away. It will take some time. It will take some years to do it. But process started, by the way. People are watching. And we have some people who are doing very good job, by the way. Some people who are in the other, I don't want to name anybody, who are doing it. And of course, Nitinji has done a good job in presenting that whole matter. But we have to play this way only to explain to people what is the problem. That's all we have to do. Why we have to do something about this problem. What we can do, I think the line has all been, they're doing it, they're working for it. And there is some compromise here and there, but ultimately, I think this has to go down the drain, the so-called arrangement by which the few judges sit down and decide things. No, it's not going to happen, because they want to have judges who are good, big, and in their knowledge of everything, and they're properly considered by people who have a right to consider, who know how to consider, and they're impartial. That's the way judiciary should be. And I think this will be exposing judiciary. It has already been exposed to some extent. And I think as time goes on, you will find that it will be automatically, I think they will drop some of these things. I think that's the way to go, because government knows it, I think. I know some people who think it will go that way, and I think it should be. But anyway, let's talk about this. I'm happy we are talking about this, but it's no harm in talking about the issue which is before us. It's our right to talk about that issue. And we can take a stand also on that issue. We can make suggestions also on that issue. Nobody's going to punish you for that. It's a democracy. America is a democratic country. This is a democratic country. All these are people, they understand that the issue is, everybody know the issue is going in the public. Everybody knows about what is going on. So therefore, we have a right to talk about this and suggest something without making too much noise, but just expressing ourselves. And we may have ultimately a very, very great support of people also down the road. I'm not suggesting we should do that kind of work, but it will automatically do it. People will talk about this. What's going on? Why a person almost declares in advance that my son is going to be the next person in charge. That's not right. It has happened. Not declared. They don't declare that, but I know I've heard it myself.
Let's see if other people want to speak, because I just don't want to become.
I think, yeah, Vijay, that's very nice for you to pitch in, and it gives a lot of solace in knowing that things are going to happen and work over time. Because that was one of the question was coming in my mind. That right now there is a new judge appointment, so the issue has been raised and is in public domain. Will that issue come up only when the next appointment is due? Not sure.
The system has to be broken, to be honest. Let me put it very
Right.
straight now. The system is wrong. I can tell you very openly, without fear and favor, that system has to be broken, but it will take some time how to break a system.
Yes.
This is a system which has been a vicious system, to be honest. No civilized society would have that kind of system. That some people get together and decide who is going to be next judge, Supreme Court judge. Oh, that's not the way it happens. They can take opinions, everybody can take opinions, and then that kind of stuff. That long process should go on to. There should be very, very well organized way to do it. Okay, even in our in our country here in America, people are concerned about many things, but still they manage to do it. But they are concerned. I mean, they are concerned about how the judges are selected, this and that kind of stuff. But nobody has gone, to be honest, that wrong way as we have gone so far. Okay.
In
That's the way
India,
I feel about it. Now it's my feeling. Okay, go ahead.
in India, the head of the state is the president of India.
Sure.
President is not the head of the government. President is the head of the state. High Court judges, Supreme Court judges, Chief Justice of India are appointed by the President of India, not by the government of India. So technically, if this confrontation continues to simmer without the collegium or the higher judiciary showing openness to reform from within, and if there are aggrieved parties, a situation may come when President of India, who's the appointing authority, could very well say that justices are appointed at my pleasure, and I do not have pleasure in appointing any of you.
That's exactly what I'm saying. What is it stopping them? Why are they so afraid to do it?
It's not
Again, that's the
very
president's
many.
role, not the government's role. If you look at the organs of the government, if you look at the structure, president as head of state cannot be bullied by the collegium or the Supreme Court to take any action. President is also, the supreme commander of Indian Armed Forces. Yes, it may be a ornamental post, but nevertheless, it's a constitutional post. And if this continues to happen, one possibility is that president may refuse to take the recommendation of the collegium. What will happen after that is unpredictable, but there is a possibility that can happen if there is no reform in the collegium system. There can be multi-level reform. It's not just one or the other. There are a lot of problems with the judiciary. That's why you have almost, 60,000 cases pending in Supreme Court and almost 5 crore cases pending all over the country in various courts. So there is an obvious problem. There is problem of corruption. There is problem of nepotism. There's problem of delays. Cases linger on for decades. So it's not just one simple problem of appointing judges, but there's need for wider structural reforms in the judicial system. That also includes, the police reforms, other reforms, forensic reforms. So there's need to have a wider look at the entire system rather than just a narrow collegium system, including impeachment of the judges. The process, the way it is, that also needs to be simplified. There's also need to have a relook at the contempt of court doctrine. So
that's what I'm coming to. Yeah.
Part of the wider judicial reforms.
Okay, I think Haritanji is 9:03, and this thank you everyone. I think it's again a very thought-provoking topic, and it's close to a lot of people. And we had wonderful discussions here. The presentation, some of the questions today, Bhishmi's insight today. I think it made a good, coherent discussion on this topic. And we'll see how things rolls out, how things open. Do we get more from inside of the judiciary, or government does something more? It's something for us to watch in the future. With that, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll meet soon next time.
Okay.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you.
Good.